Greetings, everyone. Now, those of you who've seen Jim's videos before will know that he interviews lots of different people. So I thought I'd interview him for a change. So, hello, Jim.
Hello, Bernard.
And when did you first start?
Well, I went me.
Right, that's enough.
I would try and think, Bernard, of when I first saw you. Now, I know we went to school together, but you were older than me, so I can't remember you at school. I remember Bernard Cromarty.
Lord, he was the same year as me,
Well,
Bernard.
because Bernard used to be, do you know, like music room, then 3 rooms inside?
Yes.
3 upright pianos, and Bernard Cromarty.
But not only that, but he's a really good guitarist, Bernard.
Well, just know I noticed that when I went watching Gary and Vere actually at West Orm. Well, it was in West Orm Conservative Club, but I think it was Swinton Folk Club.
That's right. It moved, didn't it, from the White Lion?
And he played. The only reason I knew because he asked me to hold the words of this song, one of his songs he's written, and I thought, bloody hell, you're a really good guitar player.
But hey, fairly early on, I discovered Antonio Carlos Jobim. So I went straight from playing Bobby Shafto and all that to putting in bossa nova chords and playing accompaniments to things like Desafinado and one.
Well, I've noticed that in your guitar playing now, quite like jazzy sort of sophisticated chords. You play an instrumental when you're on a Buxton to the month, and I thought about that.
Well, you know how that? I think that came about because I was asked to do the theme tune for a Granada series. Serial it was 6 eps, called Home and Away, and it's not that Australian one. This is 1973. It was written by Julia Jones actually, and the producer, I'd worked with this producer before, Kenneth Trod, and he said, "Can you play Making Whoopee on the guitar?" And I said, "Well, I tell you what," I said, "I have this. I had a Bang & Olufsen dual track one, so I said, I can put the accompaniment on the one and put the tune on the other." Right. So I was doing that, and while I was doing it, I thought, actually, if I rework this, I could play it all on one. Yeah. So I started putting the tune in and doing the bass and the chords and with the rhythm. Yeah. And I thought that worked. Anyway, I gave it him, and he never used it. Actually, he used a piece of classical music.
But the thing, you developed that style, which is, like I was saying, when I saw you at Buxton, I thought, because that, with folk music, you get a general sort of guitar playing, C, F and G, and A minor comes in a lot.
Yes.
A minor for folk singers.
Thrashing in A minor. Because loads of groups, I remember, from the mid-60s, did have, say, 3 guitars, and they were all playing the same place on the neck, and they'd all be hammering at A minor and C, and that's what killed a lot of songs, unfortunately.
But I don't think it was the first time I saw you, but certainly one of the first times was when we had West Orton Folk Club at Red Lion.
The Red Lion, yes.
Because it only held about, I don't know, less than 100 people. It only must have held about 80, 90 people at maximum. It was upstairs.
It probably held 40, but there were often 80, 90.
Well, there were too many stood up and that. But the atmosphere was incredible. Pat's husband, Mike Batty, who did the sound was really good. Yeah. And there were a little bar in corner. Yeah. Because that's where I'd be most of the time. But I remember seeing, and the acts that stick in my mind, and I'm not just saying it, I'm just telling you, the acts that stick in my mind from then was you, Vin Garbutt.
Vin, yes.
You were bloody belting, weren't you?
Oh, yes.
Because
Vin had the lot, didn't he? Yeah. He used to tell these really rambling stories, but they were actually jokes that he'd embroidered. But you believed them. Yeah. You believed until he come to the punchline and you go, "Oh, you bastard." Shaggy Dog stories, I suppose. But he's a good player.
And he played Penny Whistle, didn't he?
He played Penny Whistle, yeah. In fact, one of his albums was called The Young Tin Whistle Pest, wasn't it? I think that
Pest, yeah.
Australian record, that, yeah. And sadly not with us now, but...
Another one I remember is Therapy.
Oh, Dave and Fiona.
They had a fantastic sound.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Great blend on the voices.
Yes.
Yeah. And Dave's such a great guitarist. Well, of course, Fiona played too.
But yeah. Well, Fiona's been here where we're sat now. We did a song together not so long ago, you know, and I'm going to get in trouble now because there'll be people who think, well, what about us? Do you not remember us? You know, we were bloody great as well. And Oldham Tinkers. I mean, Oldham Tinkers. I'll never forget Oldham Tinkers. I loved when I first heard them.
A legend.
I was very friendly with Larry.
Yes.
You know, and you know, it's. I'm hoping, you know, do a song with them someday.
Yes, that would be good. In fact, we did. It was 1977. It was the Queen's Silver Jubilee,
right?
And we were both separately asked to sing at this Royal Command thing.
Where?
Manchester Palace Theatre. She did because it was Jubilee. She did London, Manchester, and Glasgow.
Because it's a huge theatre, isn't it? Palace Theatre. It's really nice.
Yeah, and of course it was to celebrate the people from those regions.
Yes.
You see, so they had say. Everyone did about 10 minutes. They had the entire cast of Coronation Street, the current who were in it at the moment, which could have been me because I'd been in it the month before.
What was your character?
I don't know, about 7 or 8, yeah. And ostensibly, they could. In one, I was never mentioned by name. In another, my forename was mentioned. In another, I was Mr. Somebody. Another, I was that bloke. And it could ostensibly have been the same person, except the 5th time I had a completely different name.
Right, yeah. Hey, that's great though to be in Coronation Street. I mean, bloody hell, that's the greatest soap opera of all time, and to be part of it, you know.
Oh, well, I remember I was working at the Octagon, and I'd been there since we'd done Dave and Bernard, you know, we did 68 it was, it'd been open a few months. We did Crompton's Mule, and the year after we did the Bolton Massacre. Then we split up and I did the Bolton Wanderers documentary. And it was about that time that I was looking at Granada TV and I thought, I could do that.
Yeah.
So I wrote to the casting lady. Yeah. And she said, oh yeah, I've seen you at the Octagon. She said, yeah, come in and have a chat. So that was it.
Just know, that's amazing that, you know, because most people say, I can't do that. You can't write to them, you can't tell them. And it worked out, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, it worked out. And then it snowballed, you know, and I didn't realise at the time, but really famous directors like Michael Apted, he's done lots of films, but he did that one every 7 years. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do remember that. Yeah.
And Jack Gold's is another famous one. People watching this may not have heard of these names, but you will have seen
the stuff they've done.
They've done. Yeah.
You did Coronation Street.
Yes.
And then you were in other TV. You were in Emmerdale, weren't you?
Emmerdale, yeah. I first went to Emmerdale in the late 80s, and I walked into the wool pack.
Oh, right.
Remember, I had a blue anorak on, I remember. With another bloke who was my drinking partner. And we looked round and said, oh, it's a bit dull here. And said to Amos, who was the barman at the time, such and such. And he replied, and we went, right, and went out. Yeah. And that was it. That was the first time I was in. But because it was of the time, 1980s, I had to go every day to Leeds and rehearse that, block it out. You know
what? 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Wow.
You know,
like a proper job.
In effect, you know when if you're doing a play, they'll have a rehearsal room.
Yes.
And they'll put tape on let's say tables here, or this is the door, and you rehearse it. Well, they did that, and so you walk into this, stand on this tape line, and do it, and
just know I didn't know that. And let me just tell you, so you'll not know this, but it's a little bit interesting. I was computer manager at Granada Television, and I set up the very first ever computerised archive of all Coronation Street's characters and episodes. Every episode that's ever been.
Wow.
Every character that's ever been in it.
Hey, what year would that be?
Well, when I was and I was at Granada, it was about 82, 83, 84, something like that. So it wasn't a PC. There weren't many PCs about in them days. It were all mainframe system. But there was a man who worked for Granada, I can't remember his name now, an old chap who was close to retirement. And if a magazine phoned up Granada and said, oh, we're doing an article about Ken Barlow, did ask him, and he'd give him all blurb.
He wasn't the chap in the wheelchair, was he?
I think it was. I can't remember his name.
I remember him. He was the archivist.
Archivist, exactly.
Yes,
well,
yes.
I did a computer system that replaced him. I mean, not replaced him because he was retiring.
Wow.
And we had about a bunch of girls, 6 or 7 of them, keying in every episode, every character. And one funny thing, do you know Vera Duckworth?
Mm.
Well, in them days, you know, like we were just talking about this before, about complex keys, you know, that you use in computers. Bernard's just had to put in a key to join this Wi-Fi, which was about 12 characters long. In them days, it was a simple thing, and what we'd have, the key for the characters, like Ken Barlow, was KB, so I put KB in. Anyway, Vera was coming down to look at the system, and I said, right, what are you off to, Vera, when you want to see your history? You have key in your key, which is VD. I don't know, that's a different.
And she said, how did you know my first name was Venereal? Well, you know, I mentioned about them blocking out on Emmerdale.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they used to do that for Coral at Granada, but it was on about floor 4. Something like
I was on
that.
6th floor.
A 5, something like that. It wasn't above that. And they would do the very same thing. They'd have it all blocked out. But the difference was, a lady would come round with a trolley with butties and tea and coffee. You didn't have to go to the canteen. And I think that's because the actors would be, you know, ear-holed.
Yes.
They'd be besieged by fans.
And,
which is not like going outside and being besieged, but you know, there's still people who worked
that's right.
at Granada, but you get other visitors in Granada who would.
I loved working there. I mean, great atmosphere.
Do you know, whenever I went round anywhere like that, I used to say, "Is this your office?" Wow, and they thought I'm sure they thought I was taking a piss, and I wasn't.
No, it's just
because
interesting.
Being self-employed, I had no office, and I thought. And you can use the canteen, and they go, yeah. I said, wow. I'd say, wow.
Well, just reminded me of something. I must tell you this because you know your mate Bob Williamson, he were on telly at Granada
a lot,
for a while, and I'd only just started working there in computer department, and there's a bar called the Old School.
Oh, yes, just opposite.
The Old School.
Yeah.
Well, at dinner time, he was going there for a pint, and I walked in, and Bob Willis there stood up by Charlie were. Surrounded by all these bloody fans and television people and everything. And as soon as he saw me, he said, Jimmy, come here. And he said, come here. And he started talking. And I thought, bloody hell, he's remembered me, you know, from folk clubs days. And bought me a pint and we had a chat at the bar. So he just reminded me of that.
Oh, I used to like going in the Old School.
Yeah, I did.
Mine, he did, I remember.
Yeah, a lot.
You couldn't get Bob out of the Old School. I remember once being in, and the Stables was the other bar. Yeah. Remember being in there once, and I'd been doing something at Granada, and I happened to mention that I'd heard that Liverpool football team were there.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or was it Manchester? Anyway, it's a famous football team. And my lad who was into football at the time, he said, oh, you couldn't get some autographs, could you? I said, oh, I'll have a go. And I went up, I had to say to people, excuse me, are you...
Because you wouldn't know who they are.
I didn't know who they were.
Well,
I felt terrible. I shouldn't have done it, really. I just felt stupid.
When you did Coronation Street in Emmerdale, I don't know what other, you might have done some others, but I know you did some work with Peter Kay, didn't you, on his programme?
Do you mean Phoenix Nights?
That's it.
Oh, yeah, yes. Yeah, I was Dodgy Eric.
I remember what.
Very dubious character who traded in all sorts of crap, really. It was, you know, one of them was the Das Boot machine.
Oh, right.
And I think another was this horse, this mechanical bucking bronco.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and the script was this pensioner gets on and he's chucked off.
Yes.
But the main thing, of course, was the bouncy castle.
Exactly.
With the extension at the front. And that's become legendary.
It has.
And the funny thing was, it was just one afternoon in December. I was doing a pantomime, actually, at the town hall at the time.
Yeah.
And I had to say, is it all right if I go and do a couple of scenes? And he said, yeah. And it must have been getting on. By the time we were going through it, but it got to one stage and it was going dark, you know. And Peter was directing. This is second series. The second series he directed while sat in Brian Potter's wheelchair, and then he had the monitor on his knee, you know. And I said, Peter, you can't film in this, can you? It's going dark. And he said, yeah, it'll be all right. And when you see it, it's like noon.
Well, I've seen it.
Yeah.
It is. I don't know if they've done that.
It's down to the looks, you know, on the expensive cameras and that. It's just great technology.
Where is the actual club that it were based on? It is in Farnworth.
It's in Farnworth, yeah.
I think I've seen it.
It's off the main street.
Off Main Street. Right.
If you're heading for Manchester,
yeah,
then it's there.
I have seen it because my daughter lives near there, and she said to me, that's Phoenix, what's it called? Phoenix Club. But it's not obviously called that in reality, but...
Well, I think they do have the sign up.
Do they?
Yeah, because it's brought it so much fame.
It must have done that.
It really has.
When I first started buying records, I liked Bob Dylan when I was a young teenager, and I remember saving up to buy an LP called Highway 61 Revisiting. It cost £1.10 shilling. And when I got that money, I was walking around by starting it on the ground like this. Because that was the only way you could listen to that is to buy the bloody record.
Yeah, because BBC didn't play it because they still had the light programme then in the mid-60s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, £1.10 shilling, £1.50 is the equivalent now of about 32 quid.
Yeah. So it's a lot of money.
It is.
Yeah. But now, if you want to listen to... Well, if I say, well, I'll listen to Bernard Wrigley song. I could Bernard Wrigley in Google, and it'll find some link somewhere.
You'll go to my website, yeah. But my stuff, you can't stream my stuff.
Oh, good.
It's exclusive.
Hey?
It's only because...
That stuff's exclusive. Nobody was interested in it.
It's a bit of that. It's only because you have to jump through certain hoops and be registered somewhere and pay a middleman to have them up to be streamed, so I thought.
Yeah.
So, all available from the site. But I do downloads as well, you know.
We'll go to our sponsor after this little break. Our sponsor is my dog Lottie, who lives in France with my wife Melanie.
Lottie. Oh.
Because I've got the perfect marriage. I live in north of England and my wife lives in south of France.
How often do you meet?
We meet occasionally.
Do you meet on not Facebook? What's it called? The Skype. Do you meet on Skype?
Well, no, we can do Skype or Messenger and that. I thought you would say you meet in neutral ground like Switzerland or something. Neutral territory. No, I'm going to see her in April because roof's bloody leaking and I need to get up there. And do you know, like I don't know if you've done any roofing, but in England we use lead flashing, they're called, lead valleys and flashing in chimneys and that.
To the delight of gangsters.
Correct, and it's heavy, obviously. But in France, it doesn't work. In places like Spain and southern France, because it gets so warm, lead doesn't do very well, so they use zinc.
Would it melt?
I don't think it actually melts, but it moves.
It moves, yeah.
And so they use zinc.
Zinc.
And this zinc valley is leaking. So I just thought I'd bring that into the conversation. Yeah. We've been all over the place, and we're now on to zinc valleys. I'm
sure people will send you cards saying Happy Zinc Valley Mending.
Well, I think it's been great talking to you, Bernard.
I don't know what we've been talking about, but we'll probably do it again anyway.
I hope so. I think it could be a regular feature. This we could get 3 or 4 people listening to this every month.
Well then, from Lottie,
yes, our sponsor.
From Jim, and from myself, Bernard. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.